This is the HO Vehicle Modeling Clinic. Quick introduction for anybody that wasn't from my last clinic. I'm Mike Baker. I'm a custom model builder and painter under the company named T&B Custom Models. I've been building models since I was 15 and working in hobby stores. Also, I run Nick and Nora Designs with my wife, and that's a line of craftsman structure kits and detail parts. We also carry vehicle kits by Sylvan. We used to carry Jordans, and we carry paints and glues and things like that. I put this one together because we would do a lot of shows and people would look at the Sylvan kits or look at the Jordan kit and it's like, oh, they're beautiful, but there's just so much to do and I'm scared to build them. And I said, no, don't be scared. These are fun and they are just make beautiful models. That is the Jordan Model T pickup truck. Love that kit. Yes?
Is it true when the guy died, his will said all the dies had to be killed?
I have heard that, but I don't know if that's true or not. I hope it's not. I have reached out to the family to see what's going on. I've never gotten a response.
Because usually old guys never die.
Because if I could get my hands on it, I would do it in a heartbeat. But this is a great kit, and it's one of my favorite ones. I use this one on almost every diorama scene for all of our built-ups, which is why I started carrying Sylvans, because I got tired of doing the same pickup truck in every scene, and that was the only one that Jordan offered. But real quickly, there's types of vehicle kits. Plastic, like the Jordans. Resin, like Sylvans and a few others. And then there are white metal kits of various ones, and some are great and some take work. I have examples of some of these. So with plastic kits, Jordan, that was the standard. Those things were great. They were beautiful. Unfortunately, they're not around. The good thing about those, when they were out, the price points were fantastic. They were like $4.95 to the big steam shovels are most expensive, and that was like a $27 kit. Most of them were around the $7 to $10 range. You know, like that pickup truck, that was a $7.95 kit. This car here, that was a $7.95.
I still buy them for $5 at train shows.
Sometimes I've seen them on eBay.
Just look, they're there.
You gotta hunt, because I've seen some people who are jacking the price up. eBay's got them jacked up. I've been to some shows where they're asking $25 a piece for them now. I've got a personal stash that I just have hidden away in a drawer and I'm not sharing.
How much?
They're going to somebody in my will. Herpa also makes, theirs are usually already pre-built, so they're not really kits. They do a lot of trucks and things, a lot of European ones. Some nice ones you can modify them, but they usually come pre-assembled. A whole bunch of them, if you ever go to Walker's page and type in Herpa, you'll get just pages and pages of vehicles. Atlas has a few, but obviously those are more tractor trailer style industrials. And then Athearn has a few, and that's really for the HO vehicle market and the plastics, that's kind of it.
How about the Lindbergh ones?
I don't know, do they still make those?
No, I don't make them, but they're out there.
Yeah, I was trying to go with like what's current, because there was also Williams had a line, and those were interesting, but those are hard to get also.
Magnuson maybe one's resin.
Yeah, that would be resin. So then we go into the resin kits, and there's not as many in resin. There is Sylvan, and I know he's here this weekend. Sylvan kits are beautiful. They're one-piece body castings and a one-piece floor. They come with, you have to put the steering wheel on. His tires are actually black resin. They look like rubber tires, so you don't have to paint the tires. They really turn into beautiful kits. And then there's Model Tech Studios has a couple. They take some massaging. These are a couple examples of some Sylvans. I mean, these are just, I didn't have to do much to them other than open them up, clean off the excess flash, and paint them, because they're one-piece body castings. There's a two-tone one there, but it was, clean the flash off, prime them, paint them, and then I did all the chrome work just with a paintbrush by hand, just using bright silver. Wow. I mean, they're beautiful. He's got a lot of different styles out there. This next slide is the one in the back. That's a plastic. That's a Jordan. Another beautiful kit. Really nice of them. This one up front is a company not around anymore called Resin Unlimited. They did some boats and ships, and they also did a whole bunch of fire engines and some industrial stuff. They had this one. They had a big hook and ladder one, but they're almost all resin. They again finished beautifully. Didn't have a lot of excess flash. Really good castings. So if you ever can find those.
Were they metal?
No, those are resin.
Resin.
That one, this one's resin. This one in the background is a plastic Jordan.
Okay.
So if you ever see, it was Resin Unlimited was the company, but they're not around anymore. If you ever see any of those, if you're interested in doing fire engines, they really nice kits.
How about the Walters resin, the old ones? There's tons of them out there.
Those are one-piece solid ones, weren't they?
Solid, yeah.
Yeah, they were resin, and you don't see too many of those around. I've got a drawer full of them. They're great for background vehicles though, because they're solid. And they never really look as sharp. I kind of focused on the ones that finish into more of a nicer quality model. If I was going to use any of those old Walthers, those would be background pieces only. Then you get to the metal kits. One company out there, the Wheelworks, has some nice offerings. And then there is, everybody knows Scale Structures. Their Alloy Forms line, they have a whole bunch of trucks, and they're multi-piece white metal kits. White metal's a little different to work with than plastic or resin, especially for these. You got to use CA glue, and it takes a little bit of a technique to put them together. But they finish up nice, and they've got some great options. I've also noted GHQ on here. GHQ does a lot of military stuff, but they also have some HO vehicles. But really what they have are more industrial vehicles like plows and cranes and trucks and things. And I've got an example of one in here. They're white metal, but they're out of England, so it's not the white metal as you get in the U.S., and they're really fine castings, just beautiful. They have a little flash to clean off, but very little. And the castings are beautiful. They have fine detail work on them. You'll see when we show the example. Another company that I've built a lot of theirs from is Weissman Model Services. And he's got a website. He has tons of vehicles. They're multi-piece white metal kits. A lot of older, early 20th century type of stuff. A lot of industrial vehicles. Some designs that I had never seen. But they've got a pretty nice line.
There's another custom finishing. Does a lot of.
I didn't put custom finishing in here because he's mostly maintenance of way. He's only got 1 or 2 vehicles.
But the older, if you get them off of eBay, the original ones that were put out by Bob's Razda, he had a lot more.
No, I know his full line. He had a few, but they didn't. He was mostly the maintenance of way equipment because I built tons of those. That's a whole different company. They didn't want me giving that one today. Yes.
Woodland Scenics had.
Yep, they have a
series of
few.
trucks.
They have a few, and I've got a couple examples of theirs in too. I didn't mention theirs for a reason that we'll go into. I was really wanting to focus on the ones that are going to give you nice quality finished products and without having to do a lot of extra massaging to them. And lastly, there's Micron Art. These are flat etched metal kits. They're nice. They're very limited. They've got maybe not even a dozen products out there. I've done a few of them. They finish up very nicely. And bending the brass is kind of fun. If you've seen those little model kits they have at most of the stores now, where they do spaceships and they're metal, and somebody's etching the
Statue
aluminum.
of Liberty.
Yeah, those are neat, but that's kind of along those lines. Those are fun to build too. This example is a Scale Structures Limited. It's all white metal. I mean, even the wheels on this are all white metal. On this one, the body was a one-piece casting. The frame had a couple different castings, and the tires were molded onto the wheels. I went the extra step when I was building it, and I drilled out these, and these are MV lenses for the headlights, because they just had a little bubble. And what I like to do, I don't like painting light bulbs, because the paint never looks right. So I will shave that off, shave the bubble off, and then I'll take a pin, and I will push the pin in the center of where the light bulb is supposed to be, and then I'll look at whatever lens I'm using and find that drill bit type, and I will drill just to the curve of the bit hits the surface, because that's just enough of a recess to drop that lens in. And then the glue in the lenses is just a little dab of canopy glue, and then pop the lens in, and you get that look instead of having to paint a lens. Because really you can't, it's hard to make paint do certain things, and that's one example. But yeah, those are the Scale Structures. I think they're nice kits, but again, they're mostly trucks. This is a Weissman Model Services truck. They're nice. Their castings for their cabs are a little heavy, but it's okay. They don't bend once they're put together. They just look a little heavier. But he has nice details with them. I've not seen this style tire before. These are actually little pieces of brass you drill out after you build the cab and for the supports. And that comes with the kit. It's a multi-piece frame, multi-piece body, one-piece cowling for the nose kit. Not a lot of seams you got to go back and fill. There's a good fit on these kits. I've got another example of a Weissman kit here. Another delivery truck. Wish I'd put it on a different background. The color doesn't show that well. But again, you can just see that the seams on it are pretty crisp and tight. There is with any of the white metal kits, you'll find as the parts are packed in bags most of the time, you're going to have to straighten some out. They'll be a little bent. But white metal is really soft, so it doesn't take a lot to bend it back. I would recommend cleaning up all the pieces first, because you don't want something that looks like this. This is a Woodland Scenics product. Their white metal is very brittle, and if you try to bend it too much, they're going to snap. I didn't bend this frame back, but this is, you can see from here, their castings are kind of rough. There's just, to go back and clean all that up, you need a bunch of knives and scalpels, and because it's all around the little detail. It finishes up as a knife. I would use this as a background model. It's a couple interesting kits they have, but their casting process is really rough, and their metal is very, very brittle. So I was worried about bending this more, breaking that frame, and I was afraid if I broke the frame and tried to glue it, it was never going to be strong again. Because it just is not very forgiving, and there wasn't a lot of places to hide a bracing if I did. This next model is one of the offerings from GHQ. These kits, if you want to do some farm equipment or you want to do some industrial stuff, look for some of these. These are beautiful little kits. They're very well organized. This kit actually comes with options to model with this dumpster up or down. We did the down here. But you just see the detail in the castings. I mean, I did an alcohol wash after the painting to pull it up. But even the air cleaner for the engine is a separate piece you put in there. It's on the other side, so you can see it. The stack is a separate piece. It's just, it finishes so nice. I really like those kits. So I would recommend, if you're doing farm scene or industrial scene, look and see if you can get your hands on a couple of those. They go together. White metal is always put together using CA glue. You don't need a lot of CA glue. I always tell people, get an old dish, candy dish or something, and make a puddle and apply the CA glue with just a pin, because you only need a drop in some places. The wheels and tires all have little pins and holes to fit everything together, so you just put a drop in there. This one you can really assemble easily in a half hour to 45 minutes, depending on your scale.
What's the name of that glue again?
CA glue?
CA glue?
Yeah, like jet, or some people call it super glue. Yes.
That is HO scale?
That's HO scale.
And just roughly how many pieces were in there? Just within 10, like 30, 50?
No. It's less than 20. It's
Okay.
less than 20. Because the seat's a separate casting. Let's see, the wheels, so you got 4 wheels. Yeah, it's under 20.
And it was white metal when you...
It was
just
all
painted it.
unfinished white metal, yeah. The one thing I do when I'm doing these is I don't put it all together at once. I build everything into sub-assemblies because it's easier to paint. And then I'll go back, like the wheels obviously went on last because I wanted to, I airbrushed the whole thing. So I even kept this part off until after painting. I painted the main body, painted this, and then did my detail painting and then the final assembly. But then I had it ready for the paint room in under a half hour.
Do you have anybody you know at the show that sells those, or is there several people? Nobody?
I know they're available through Walthers. I don't know if anybody here has them in stock or not. I know they don't have a table here. But you can find them through Walthers. You can type it online and find them.
The last kit that I built a couple weeks ago, 11 pieces, I think it was.
Was it GHQ? Yeah.
Not that one, but
Yeah, that's a nicely detailed one. But they finish up so nice, and the fit is really good.
Mrs. Fred?
Yes.
That's modern. What is the best source for vehicles from 1920 to 1939? Pre-war vehicles.
That would have been Jordan. I will refer you back to the Weissman Model Services. Theirs are early 20th century. Sylvan is more 40s, 30s, 40s, 50s.
Skin structures.
Yeah, I'm not sure the time frames because theirs jumped around. They've got some more modern ones too. But Weissman is one I would check out for that area.
There's a lot of stuff from 1940 up, but I'm looking
Yeah.
for 39 back.
I would check out what Weissman. They have a lot of vehicles. I've only built about 30 of their offerings. So
That tractor's $18.99 plus $5.70 shipping on eBay.
Are you using solvent-based paint on that?
I always try to use solvent-based paint.
So what'd you do, skill coat that?
No, that was primed with Flowcool Model Master primer, and the red, I don't remember.
That's good,
I don't remember.
Yeah.
I think that might have just been Tester's dark red, their standard line dark red thinned down, because I had it in stock from another project.
Enamel?
Yeah, enamel. And then after it was all primed and painted, I will tell you that the tires it's an acrylic paint. It's something we'll touch on about the different paints and things. And then the metal, I think was I had a little Flowcool bright silver left. I think that's what that was, or it was Model Master aluminum. I can't remember.
Wow.
This is I didn't have any. I couldn't find any of my Micron art build-ups, but this is basically their instruction sheet, to the last page of what it does. But you can see it's all done. It's all flat brass, and you bend it. You can see here the tabs that go through for the bed. Again, this is another one you could put together within an hour. And I would recommend sub-assemblies for painting it, but they're neat little kits. I'm going to walk through a example build right now of what was one of my favorites from the Jordan line, their Packard truck. I selected this one because it's a great looking model, but it's had a couple hiccups that you really had to work through to put it together to make it look right.
We got a quick picture here. I have a Jordan fan. I'm going to tell him what he's missing.
So when you get the Jordan kit for this, and you open up the little bag, this is what you get. These parts here, this is the truck bed, the sides, and then the cab. There's the back of the cab, the roof. Over here this is the frame. This is the trickiest part. It's the fenders for the front. This is the transmission here. There's your seats. There's another part of the transmission. There's the rear axle, all your wheels to be put together. Just a lot of details with these kits. Jordans were just so beautiful. And then there's his headlights if you use their headlights. And they fit into the moldings on the cowling for the front, which is this piece upside down right now. So the first thing you do when you're working on these, and any of the Jordans, it goes in place for a lot of the white metals too, is you got to build the frame. You got to start with the foundation. So as you saw in the last picture, it was a two-piece, two sides of the frame, and it had this centerpiece. This is the floor. It's also the bottom of the engine. This piece has to be aligned perfectly with the fronts of the two frames. If you don't, it's not going to be square. If you ever tried to drive a car that's been in a hit and wasn't square anymore, it's not fun. So you want this to be square. So you glue the sides to this piece and make sure you got all this square. Don't worry about this hanging off the back yet. That'll tighten up eventually. But you want good square joint here. Once you have that done, the next thing is you put this little hanger in, and it's just a little, I don't know if you can see it in the previous picture. Let's go back, and it is, where'd you go? Where'd you go? Okay, I can't see it from here. It's this piece. It's not a good angle. Basically, it goes straight and then comes down to V and then comes back up. And that actually supports the drive on the prototype. So you put that little piece in, it fits into the holes perfectly. That's another thing about the Jordans. The fit is fantastic. There was a little bit of flash you have to clean up, but you didn't have to go and re-drill a hole or anything. They went together rather nicely. Then you put this back piece in that stabilizes the back, and you got to make sure you have it right because the tail light goes on as you're looking at it, the left side. You could put it upside down if you weren't paying attention. Next thing to do is you mount this piece to the rear axle, and it rests in here, but I kept it off for this because I wanted you to see how the parts go together. And here it is. I still left it off because I think I wanted to paint around it differently. So the next thing I did is I put together the engine cowling, and that is two sides, a top, a front, and then the front of the cab itself to finish that off. Also at this point is the front fender piece goes on. And if you built all this right, this pops in, and you'll have a little lip for the front of the cowling just to sit down. Also, I should say that when I'm doing Jordans, they're all plastic, so I was using Plasti-Weld for the assembly. Any plastic solvent cement works best for this. I personally prefer Plasti-Weld for myself. And then we've got this picture showing, I've added the steering wheel and the gears and the drive package and the seat. You can see here's the rear axle, and the exhaust pipe is all in there. I leave the bed off for the painting process because I want to be able to get the airbrush in there easier. And here's just another shot of it upside down, so you can see how that all fitted together. You can kind of see that V piece we were talking about there. Now the front axle's on here. It just gets glued to the bottom of the springs. You could build these using all CA if you wanted instead of solvent cement. Solvent cement's going to set up quicker, so make it a little faster to work with. This is a better detailed shot. You can see what's going on with the cab there. I mean, look at just the fine detail in these. Here's the brake lever. There's the gear shift back there. That's the gauges cluster. This fenders here is the trickiest part of the whole process. They give you a one-piece casting for the fenders, but they give you these 6 brackets, and the drawing isn't really clear how they line up and which bracket goes where. So after trial and error, but you attach the brackets first to both sides of the fenders. They go on the underside, and then when you slide, it's got this piece that keeps the fenders together, and you slide that underneath, and you just want to raise it up so that the flat part of this bracket is on the side, and the angle is just above where the top of the side row comes in. If you got that, and it's centered right over the wheel like that, it's in place perfectly. That's the worst part of the construction.
Are there extra brackets? You said there's 6 brackets.
Six little angled brackets. Let me go back a couple slides. I can show you on the part sheet.
So there's 3 for each side, there's no extras?
There's no extras, and they're tiny. See these here?
Yeah.
There's your 6 brackets. So and here's your fender casting here. That is the hardest part of the construction. After that, it's a breeze. And it's a take your time thing. You know, no distractions. I will tell you, if you're working on something like this and you're worried about dropping parts, there's an old jeweler's trick where they would get an apron and they would snap it to the workbench. So if they drop anything, it falls right there.
Yeah.
So, you know, all you need is a couple hooks on your apron and grommets on the workbench, or vice versa. That way, if anything pops off. The other thing to do is do what the old mechanics did when they used to rebuild carburetors. Anybody know that story?
What's a carburetor?
Okay, no, that's the problem. Carburetors have a lot of springs and valves and stuff. Well, I knew a mechanic once, and he said anytime he had to rebuild a carburetor, he put a white sheet on the floor. He would sit on the floor, take it apart, and rebuild it there. That way, nothing could go flying. Everything's right there.
Oh.
So you could do that too, but I wouldn't want to sit on the floor and build a model. Jordan also had non-motor vehicles, a lot of horse-drawn ones. The problem with that is you're doing the vehicle, and those are fun to build, but then you got to build the horses and paint them, and that's kind of a different technique. And I'm not really that great at painting horses. But just this is HO scale. This is HO scale. Look at the detail in these kits. It was a multi-piece cat. It was flat sides, flat floor, flat front, and just built the little box. The 5th wheel is under there. But look at the level of detail in these. I mean, I really didn't do much more than put it together, paint it, and put a wash on it just to pull the detail. They just finished beautifully. Here's another version of that in a different color and some not very well painted horses. For the reins, they don't come with anything like the reins. They come with the harness here, which is plastic. That's just thread. I don't even know the color. It's just a tan color, looks like rope. I stole a spool of it from Karen, and she never caught me. So, hearse, love this kit. This one was great. We have a haunted house structure kit, and we used to run a special. If you bought the haunted house at the show, we gave you a free hearse. And then all of a sudden, I ran out of hearses, so we don't do that anymore. But again, it even comes with a coffin. It comes with the little man. It's
And then what happened? The sales died off after that?
So that's a quick overview of the Jordan kits. It's sad that they're gone. Really, especially since I used to carry them. They were a great seller. They were just wonderful kits. This is an example of a Sylvan kit. I don't know if anybody knows Claire Gilbert. He's going to be here this weekend. He's over in the Better Living Center. He'll probably have every one of his kits with him. He also does some boats and some buoys and some other things. His finish up beautifully too. They're resin, a little different technique, but here's what you get when you open one of his. Fortunately, he does everything in white resin. I wanted this to show up, so I put down this piece of blue tile, but you can't really see his tires, but they come cast in color, so you don't have to paint them. And the color really looks nice on those. But you get the 4 wheels, your 4 tires, there's your steering wheel, there's your headlights right there. You got to drill and set them into the body. You get a one-piece body. There's your interior and your floor frame, and this is your dashboard here. And he even gives you drivers. And every kit, every driver has a different name. It says it on the box. So I don't remember which the name of this one is, but he names all of his drivers.
What do you have to, the window openings, or you have to?
You got to clean, there's flash in there, so you clean them out, but it's very thin. It's very, very thin, and I think I show it here in a minute. He also gives you a vacuum-formed canopy for the window glass. I don't like using those because you put it in and it sits behind the frames, and it looks okay and it goes in really, really fast, but it doesn't give you quite the right look. I prefer to use canopy glue to make my windows, and I'll explain that in a couple minutes. Here's just a better overhead shot. But you can see that there is some flash, but it's very thin. You got to cut off the sprues here where the wheels go in. Don't cut off your front bumper. But really, there's not, and all you need to do to remove the flash, sharp X-Acto blade in your knife and just run it around the seam. His resin is very soft. If you get too much, you can just scrape it off gently. Don't gouge it, just do a little bit of time. But it takes just a couple minutes to clean the flash off of those. And here's what it looks like when you paint and finish. Now there is flash in the windows, and here's what I do to clear it out. I stick my knife through the window, and I push it up to one of the edges, and I just keep it up against the edge with the knife tilted just a little bit, and it acts like a router. And I just go around the seam, and the flash just drops out. It just takes a second. You just got to make sure you don't stab through because his resin is soft. Then after the vehicle is all painted, I should also say I leave the body and the frame separate until the last possible minute, because you still have to paint the interior and that stuff, and it's easier to work with when you have the frame here and the one-piece body here. But to do the windows using the canopy glue, Micro Scale makes a product also similar to canopy glue that is called Micro Crystal Clear. I have both of them if anybody's interested in it. But what you do with this stuff is, I make a little puddle in a cup, and you put some on the edge of a pin, and you run it around the edges of the window. Then you go back to your cup, and you get a bigger bubble on the end of your pin, and start in one corner of your window, and pull it to the diagonal corner, and that'll make a bubble, and it'll be white. Let it, and it dries clear, and that's how you do it. It may take you 1 or 2 times to get the hang of that technique, but once you get it, you start flying through putting windows in. The one thing I do, though, is I'll start with like the front window, and then I will do the rear passenger window, and then I will do this passenger window. I'd never want to do windows next to each other at the same time while they're setting up. It's too easy to pop one while they're curing. But once it's cured, they're done. They're perfect. They don't fog up. If you get really good with the technique, you can get that really, really thin. If you put it on too heavy, it's going to look like Coke bottles. But it's an easy technique. It just takes a little bit of time. This is also an example. I didn't drill out the headlights and put in the MV lenses, so you can kind of see. You don't really get a real delineation. Even if you use a different metallic paint, you can't. It just doesn't quite look. So I probably should go back and switch that out. You can see how his wheels are always a good fit into the tires. You don't need any glue. Just put the rim into the tire. It'll just fit perfectly. And just a little bit of CA to put the tires to the frame. Another one, he really does a good job designing them for the fit so they go together nicely and they finish up well. So now we'll talk a little bit about the painting and the finishing. So if you sat through my paint and glue clinic, some of this is going to be repeated, but in painting there are the paints that we're going to use. Enamels, that's my preference. I know a lot of people don't like working with enamels because of the odor and smell. You should have it ventilated if you're spraying. Actually, if you're spraying any paint, even acrylics, you should have it ventilated. And it's not always the carrier in the paint. Sometimes the pigment is the bad part. And then there are acrylic paints. And in the acrylic paints, the craft paints. craft paints on model vehicles, yeah. Claire Gilbert, the guy that runs Sylvan, that's what he uses. And believe it or not, he brushes them. He doesn't airbrush them. If you look at his finished models, they're all with craft paints and they were brushed on. So you can do it. Not the way I would want to do it, but yeah, you can hand brush application, airbrush. That's I prefer doing with airbrush. You get a nicer finish. You get a much thinner finish. You don't have to worry about obscuring detail if you airbrush properly. And then you can use the what we called back in those sign shops, the spray bombs. You can use the spray cans. The thing I don't like about using spray cans, even the testers, the ones that are designed for model work, on things this small, that pigment isn't ground up that fine, and the carrier isn't. So if you're not careful, you can just blow away all your detail by just globbing too much paint down. You just don't have the same control with a spray can as you do with an airbrush. Some people just aren't used to them or uncomfortable with them. That's unfortunate, but you can do it if you want. But I prefer to do everything with an airbrush just because I want the finer detail. Then there are the types of finishes, and these are the kind of things you need to think about after you've painted it. Because after you've built your model and your sub-assemblies and everything's clean, I forgot to mention that earlier, but before we start painting, we need to make sure that the model's clean of oils, not just from the mold process, but from your hands. Like when I get ready to go to work, I wash my hands and I don't touch anything in the house until I get downstairs to work because I don't want stuff on there that's going to get on there. So, wash, clean the model, even if you just wipe it down with alcohol. You just want to have a nice clean finish for the paint adhere to. Then you paint it so you're ready to move on to the next step. You want your types of finish. Well, is this going to be a new car, or is this going to be a car that's been sitting in a junkyard for 30 years? So we need to think about that. So obviously gloss, if it's going to be a new car or reasonably well taken care of. Semi-gloss, one that's kind of worn, the paint's oxidized maybe, it's a little older car. Satin finish if you want to look like the paint's going, and then a flat if we're going to beat this thing up. So that's part of the painting process that we need to think about. Yep, and I jumped ahead again like I always do with myself. Installing windows. There's a couple different types. There's vacuum form windows, usually comes with the kit, like we showed, came with that one Sylvan kit. They're nice because they're convenient, but they don't always look the best on a finished model because they're going to be smaller than the opening to fit in, and they aren't going to quite meet the frames. Styrene sheet is great for flat windows, not really good for anything that's got a concave shape. Jordan's always included a sheet of styrene in with theirs. And you just trim it a little bigger than the window opening, glue it in from the inside, hit it with a dab of solvent cement, and it's in. And then canopy glue is a technique that I just described. And for vehicle windows, that's really the way to go. It's what the aircraft guys are using for their canopies. And once you get that technique down, it goes fast. And working with metals is kind of hard. You can't really chrome scale stuff. It's really impractical. So one of the products out there on the market is bare metal foil. Have anybody ever worked with the bare metal foil? It was designed for the car modelers, the guy who are doing the 1/24th, 25th scale models. And it comes in a sheet, and it's got an adhesive on the back. And so what you do is you trim out the rough size of what you're going to work with. You pull the adhesive off, and you put it down on the part. And then you gently burnish it with your fingers, and you take a sharp blade, and you just trim away the excess. And it looks like chrome, or it looks like brushed metal. They've got like 7 or 8 different finishes. So bare metal foil is neat, but for really tiny stuff, it's a pain to work with. But for doing bumpers, or if you're doing the side of a trailer that you want to look like an aluminum or something, it's great. The other thing I recommend is there are metallic paints. Some metallic paints are good, like the Tester's Bright Silver was a great color. But if I'm working with metal colors, Tester's Metallizer series, designed to be airbrushed right out of the bottle. They do aluminum, brushed aluminum, several other colors are great. They're easy to work with. You can hand brush them too. If you're going to hand brush, especially if you're doing like detail painting, like door handles and things. And what I do if I'm going to hand brush is I'll shake the bottle up and I'll open the cap. I'll dip my tip of my brush in what the paint that's in the cap and then just hit it. But the colors in that Metallizer series are great for vehicles. So I would really recommend those. The other big bugaboo that I've had with doing vehicle models is tire black. Tires are not engine black. They're just not if you look at them. There is a newer product out there from a company called Life Color. And they do a lot of acrylic paints. Their line was originally designed for the military modelers and the figure modelers. They've got a whole line of paints. They have a set of rubber blacks, they call them. One of their colors, I believe it's number 710 in their series, is called Tire Black, and it's fantastic. That's the Tire Black I used on the tractor earlier to get that color. It's not black, it's not gray. It has that look of a tire.
Are you selling it?
I have it. I have the black sets. I don't have any individual bottles because they're out of stock right now. I tried. I was trying to get like a dozen or so, but I have the whole set because in that 6-bottle set they have vulcanized rubber, burnt rubber, tire black, one they call deep cockpit. I can't remember what the 6th one is, and they're great colors for different things. This tire black color I love. It really looks good.
Excuse me, who handles that line?
I carry the paints, but it's a company called Life Color. Some stores carry them. You can get them online from places.
You have something for the weekend?
I have a couple sets, yes.
Good.
So a few products that I recommend if you're doing vehicle modeling just to help finish things along. If we're doing our junkyard models, obviously Rustall. It's been around for years. Rustall is a 4-part process. After you've got your model painted, you put down the rust-based color. You let that dry. Then you do. It comes with a black wash. You apply that one. Then it comes with a flat finish to apply, and then they come with a little vial of dust, and you sprinkle the model with that and just kind of brush it with a very soft brush. Rustall's great. It really makes things look like they have been beaten up. The Life Color line, like I said, the black set is great because you get all those different colors. Microcrystal clear or canopy glue, like we talked about, is a great product. Bare metal foil for doing any of your chromes, because it does have a nice finish. It's easy to take. It has a little bit of a learning curve to work with it, but it is nice. Yes.
Have you ever used I think it's Moloko chrome pens? Never heard of them, have you?
I know Moloko. I haven't heard of that.
Their chrome pen is amazing.
I'll have to try that one. And then lastly, the Testors Metallizer series are just great paint. I mean, these are all things when I'm doing vehicle modeling, I'm using all of these. So now just a few notes about weathering. That's another Jordan offering. Level of detail, so beautiful on those. So let me go back a slide. This one, lightly weathered here. You know, it was painted, decaled, so it was obviously gloss for decaling, and sealed in kind of a satiny look because I wanted it to look a little bit used. And then this is just the Rustall product that I used. Just kind of brushed it around and just let it dry, air dry. Let it do. When you brush it on, just let it do whatever it's going to do. You know, if it separates, runs, because it's going to go to the seams the way rust would. Just let it work its process. So this is a very lightly rusted vehicle. But this next slide is the same vehicle, but I really beat up the bed. There's like 2 or 3 coats of the Rustall there. And it's an additive process. And one thing I always recommend when we're weathering, do a little bit at a time and look at it and do a little bit more. It's always easier to add than to take away. You don't want to weather this thing like, I did too much. Because then you're probably going to have to start over. This next slide is just it's a vehicle, but you can see it's just, I wanted this one to look newer but used, like it had just gone across the country. So it's got, you know, some airbrush dust. I soft brushed some of the dust that came with the Rustall just to kind of get in the seams, but I didn't want it beaten down. I just wanted it to look used. So that was very subtle weathering on that one. Again, it's easier to go back, and if I want to beat this up more, easier to add more than to make it look like this and want to get back to that level. That's not going to happen. So that's HO scale vehicles. Next, there are N scale vehicle kits. But we're not going to talk about those today. So, does anybody have any questions? Yeah.
I wanted to clarify, I misspoke a minute ago. It's Moloko, T-O-W, and they're...
Okay, yeah, I haven't heard of that company, because Moloko made caboose kits and things.
Right.
I thought they had...
This is an art supply stuff. You're going to get it at like a
Okay.
supply place.
Okay.
But they make alcohol pens all the time, but they're chrome pen. Yeah, it's weird.
Oh, chrome pen. I think you said pen. Okay, pen. Okay, yeah.
It's
Like a paint pen.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, yeah.
They make it in bulk too, but I've only seen they make a 1, a 2, and a 4.
Yeah, I didn't know of that line.
Yeah, and then there is a 180 scale vehicle group that's going to be here that's in the Mallory building. They're worth stopping by to see. It's
I think I was on their thread not too long ago. I can't remember why. So, any other questions? And one, we're not weathering that. It's just too pretty.
Oh, nice.
one of the questions I have, all the vehicles I have, the tires are too round.
Mhm.
You got, yeah, what would you recommend? Just,
It depends on what they're made out of, but sanding them is the easiest thing to do.
Yeah.
I know with the aircraft guys, if there's a lot of aftermarket in the aircraft modeling world, where you can go buy tires that are resin that somebody molded to have the little bubble in them,
Yeah.
for the weight. In HO vehicles, I would just sand the bottoms lightly. And sometimes if the frame's not straight, you gotta sand one of them anyhow to get it to sit right.
yeah.
But that's easy. And a lot of times, if they're Sylvans, I sand the whole thing because he's got a flash around there. So I want to get it sanded to make them look like they've been used. But yeah, just lightly sand the bottoms to get them to sit down better.
You don't let air out of the tire.
I haven't figured out how. Any other questions? All right, thank you. I hope you found it useful. And if you find any Jordans, now you know what to do with them.
I got a drawer full of them myself.
All right.
Okay.
Next.
If you find anybody that knows how to paint horses, give me a call. I don't believe that.
Well, I do it. I'm just never happy with mine.
This is Curtis Hunt, CNL Lines. All aboard!